Welcome to Nerdarchy. For nerds, by nerds, I'm Nerdarchists Dave.
And I'm Nerdarchists Ted, and today we're cracking open a big one. Who controls the flow of information?
In the roaring 20s of Big City Zoo, you and your mob of criminal animals pull heists, run rackets, and dodge human suspicion while climbing the ranks of the underworld. Get made by one of the 3 crime families, but don't let the humans catch you acting like anything other than your wild self. You can find a link to the upcoming Kickstarter as well as the free Quickstart rules down in the description below. There's a bunch of other links down there too you can check out.
So in Zoo Mafia, control of information is power. Who knows what, when, and how shapes every move in the criminal underworld. From the sharp-eyed lookouts, the whispering grifters, to reporters like Outback Alice, those who control the flow of secrets, rumors, and headlines can make or break mobs, shift alliances, or trigger zoo-wide crackdowns.
Lookouts and grifters. These roles specialize in gathering intel, staying unseen, and leveraging contacts, making them key players in managing what information is discovered or concealed within the zoo. These actually happen to be a couple of our playbooks, and these are the playbooks that are all about being aware of what's going on, what's where, and who's who.
We have 6 stats within Zoo Mafia, and each of the 6 core playbooks that we have available are linked to one of these. So awareness and magnetism are what the lookout and the grifter are all about, and being able to connect with your fellow zoo members, being able to connect with your potential mafia that you want to join. Information need not necessarily be words. Sometimes, like in D&D, we want to make that insight roll. Like, this is a crucial thing. Is this person lying or not? Getting that information has the ability to greatly change. Is the legitimate deal that's being offered to you a legitimate deal? Or are they looking to just kind of offer this up, hoping for you to do the job, and then once they've got what, they just walk away, not giving you your reward, not giving you what was promised? These kind of things have the ability to make or break a story, and lies are just as important as truth. So, like, if you aren't prepared to get into the nitty gritty of, is this legit here, you might find yourself on the wrong side of a gun.
That is the truth. So Zoo Mafia is a more narrative focused game than something like D&D. It's less mechanically crunchy. But that being said, certain playbooks, especially these 2, have the way to pull information out of your zookeeper, the GM in this case, where by making a certain check or different parts of the game, different phases of the game, they have the ability to ask questions of the zookeeper, and the zookeeper has to give them the information. So some of the narrative control gets put in the player's hands in these cases. It's funny, but these particular playbooks are actually good at actually controlling the flow of information and pulling it out of the zookeeper, especially at crucial times, which can be very helpful when you're trying to pull a job and get things done. So knowing the right people, knowing what's going on, knowing about locations, these playbooks excel at those. And it's just a fun little twist for the style of play compared to like a D&D game, where you're always like waiting and trying to get that narration from the GM, where in this game, on this side of the GM screen, you have a little bit more control and access to getting that information. It's more of the way that the game flows is more of a conversation between the players and the GM, very powered by apocalypse in a sense.
And I'll take that even a step further. Not only are you able to ask the questions, but if you completely succeed on it, any questions you're asking, the GM has to tell you the truth. So it's all about how you are phrasing that question and how the GM chooses to answer. But you know that whatever the GM tells you is accurate, because that's the rules. You got to tell the truth. So it's pretty cool. I've seen questions come up and it's like, oh my, I was not expecting you to ask that question. All right, let's dive in and see how this goes. Outback Alice in the Zoo Daily. The zoo's lone investigative journalist can sway public opinion and criminal dynamics in a single photo or headline, making her a wild card in the flow of information.
So in Zoo Mafia, but any game really, right? If you introduce any kind of like news, magazine, periodicals, newsletter, anything like that, right? It can be a tool that you, the GM, uses to disseminate information into the game. And also, it can be a fun way to disseminate information in the game. And the perfect place to use props, too. So if you wanted to print out circulars or flyers or something of that nature and hand it to your players for them to read, you could do that. And it'd be a little bit more interactive than maybe what they're used to doing. But also, when you have people that are directing that, like in this case, a journalist who has their own agenda, which is to get out the news. Maybe they don't care about one side or another. They just want to report on, oh, there's a mob war going on. These 2 families are fighting against each other. Here are the players on either side. Who are the big shots? These are the big shots. Who is taking the casualties? They might be reporting information that the families would not want reported on. Maybe law enforcement wouldn't wanted it reported on either, because they could be like highlighting the failures of law enforcement. Maybe the flat football aren't doing their job, or they're suspected of being corrupt, or they're just incompetent, or maybe they're going to foreshadow the fact that their claw patrol is going to be brought in, which are like the feds in Zoo Mafia, because the cops aren't doing a good enough job and crime has gone so rampant and out of control. These can all be fun things that you can kind of you use in a game. Now, some of this is specific to Zoo Mafia, but you can kind of take these concepts and work them into other games. Eberron, like they use newspapers and stuff like that in that game as well. Or if you're playing another game that's not a D&D game, look at the sources. What can you use? When we played Monster of the Week, my players would Google stuff all the time. And I would use real locations and kind of like steep my adventures in the real world, and then add stuff to it that was fantastical or magical in nature. So they would ask me, well, can my character Google this? And I say, well, you got a phone, Google it yourself. And they'd be like, oh, this thing came up. And I'm like, yeah, that looks like the thing you're looking for, or whatever, because that's how I found a lot of the information for my Monster of the Week games. With that being said, you can take that into any kind of modern game or a future game, or even if you have a game where there is like print media, like newspapers and stuff like that, you can still use that stuff to highlight information, give quests, and you just kind of like make your world a little bit richer and maybe a little bit more of an entertaining and different way to disseminate information to your player.
With the way Zoo Mafia is broken down, with a lot of the games that we've run, each session is a job, a time frame, 1 to 3 days, what have you. So you could very easily like run it in that style, and the start of every session could be, well, here's today's headlines, and you read off, and it could very well be the journalist or the public's opinions on what has just transpired. So you could have quite a lot of fun doing that, especially if you're the DM who, or in this case, Zookeeper, who likes to do flavor text and kind of read that out. Or as Dave already kind of pointed out, like if you want to do props and you want to actually print out one of these things and be like, okay, here's the newspaper that arrives at your doorstep today.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot of fun with that stuff. There's another way to get for the information to come into your world as well, and who controls it. That is the crime families. With networks of informants and loyal enforcers, families like Al Capone's crew often manipulate what's known or hidden to protect their operations and sabotage rivals.
So the crime families really control so much that's going on. I mean, based on how the real world mafia was kind of doing things back during this time frame, like they're more powerful than the police department. They are controlling what's going on. Therefore, they're the ones who are looking to control that narrative. They're the ones looking to use a combination of fear and intimidation to keep some things out of the press, to keep certain people in the dark, because it's like, all right, well, I could just plug you or your family or whoever. You don't want me as your enemy. So, you got to do what I say.
Yeah, and also like even in our games, it can go the other way too. Like the players will often try and control what information gets sent to the different mobs and mob bosses. And that's been a big part of a couple of the campaigns I've run that I played in, where it's almost this reverse flow of information, and it's being weaponized in order to take down a particular crime family or mob boss. Maybe even the one you allegedly are working for.
Allegedly.
Yeah. So this can be a lot of fun, but also like in any game that you're playing, right, there are going to be authority figures and power centers, and they're going to control the information. At least they're going to try to. They're going to want to manipulate it. They're going to want to own it. They're going to want to make sure they're the ones that really knows what's going on, and wherever they can, they're going to want to obfuscate what's going on to the rivals. So this is something you can use as a GM, and it doesn't matter if you're playing Zoo Mafia or D&D. I love putting out red herrings for my players to find, and also giving them a little bit of misinformation and letting them run wild with it to see where it goes. And you can't do it all the time, or they're just never going to trust you. But if you do it just enough, when it finally does turn out, everything comes to light, and they figure out what's going on, it's just like aha moment. And I feel like the players have had a lot of fun with that in the past. But like I said, you have to do it sparingly and to not overly abuse them with it.
Absolutely. So if you were an animal in Big City Zoo, what kind of secrets would you keep or expose to climb the ranks of the Zoo Mafia? All right, so that's a wrap on who controls the flow of information.
How to twist it in your games for maximum drama.
So hit that like, smash subscribe, and ring that bell.
Till next time, stay nerdy.
Stay nerdy.